Hello everyone, we welcome you all to this week Tech Tuesday webinar on deep dive into the new workflow functionality, part of April 2025 release. Today's speaker is Pradeep from R&D team. Before we start the session, let's go through some of the housekeeping tips. The webinar is scheduled for 1 hour that includes 15 minutes Q&A. You can post your queries in Q&A box which will be answered at the end of the presentation. All participants will be muted during the presentation. The session will be recorded and it will be available on a success portal where you can also download the slide deck. Please feel free to submit your suggestion or feedback for this session in the post-webinar survey. The Success Portal is a micro-learning platform that offers free, unlimited learning to all the registered users. This feature-rich platform helps you learn and adopt to Informatica products better. The following are important links that you can go over later. This will help you in your product adoption journey with Informatica. Over to you, Pradeep. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for those joining across the globe. Here is the agenda for this session of new workflow functionality, which is going to be part of CDGC's April 2025 release. In the next 1 hour, we will look at the new workflow engine, which is going to be part of the CDGC, and also why we need this and how it is going to solve most of the CDGC use cases which require human intervention. During this process, we'll also see how the new workflows can be designed within the MCC, configuring these workflows using the events and generating the tickets. Once the tickets are created, how the tasks are being completed by the users in the CDGC application. Also, we will discuss about the upgrade impact or how the users currently using the CAI-based workflows needs to transition to the new workflow engine or the process. We'll have a short demo of the application, and then finally we'll have the Q&A. Currently, CDGC uses CAI-based processes for all the workflow management, which requires human intervention, and that is used by the human task service. This CAI-based workflow or the human task uses DeepL as the engine, and the DeepL has a limitation which cannot scale to the business needs of the CDGC. Now, it is not only about the scale, also about the usability. The workflows with the human task can be active for not more than 10 minutes. It is a short-lived process. And also once the task is completed, it stays in the history for only 3 days. Later that it will be removed and it will not be available for any of the audit history in the CI-based approach. Also, the workflows itself are not visually intuitive for the business users, and it requires a lot of knowledge and the upskilling to design and configure them. In order to mitigate all these limitations, we have come up with a new engine which is based on BPMN standards. BPMN itself is a scalable and more intuitive, visually appealing to the users and the designers. It can be completely customized for any business use cases, starting from the approval process or the data remediation process, or even it could be proposal use cases. So some of these from the CDGC use cases, it can be used. Currently, from the April standpoint, we are going to support the user tab and the decision gateway, which consists of majority of the use cases from the CDGC perspective. It is a user-friendly UI, which is a swim lane-based approach or the canvas, where each swim lane represents a stakeholder role and any components or the user task placed in that swim lane is directly assigned to the users having that stakeholdership role. It also provides a real-time visibility into the workflow progress at any given point in time. When we are doing all this with the usability, again, it supports the scale and the performance which are required for the enterprise use case. So with all these positives and a long way to proceed on the workflow, we will look at how the workflows can be designed within the MCC and how the events are going to be configured with the new engine. Until now, CDGC, as I mentioned, was using CI-based workflows or the processes, and any workflow design had to start with the CI application. This also added a dependency for a new application within the IDMC platform for the CDGC. Now we are going to remove those dependencies and we are going to provide the design capability within the MCC application itself. With the new object creation option, you will see an workflow as a component or the category where the user can click on the create new workflow, which loads a designer canvas with the swim lane. By default, we are going to have three swim lanes and we have the component tray table on the left hand side panel where users can start designing the workflows and they can also visualize the progress. The drag and drop capability is very convenient for the design purposes, and also it supports the component context-based design for the workflow progress. So if you are on a particular component that is a user tab, it suggests what is the next component it can be placed, and users can choose that and proceed on the designing of the workflows. It also provides a real-time validation so that the users won't spend a significant effort later on to resolve all the errors which are going to be coming up in the workflow. The workflow itself can be complex, it can go into multiple steps. So real-time validations help the designers to create the workflow in a faster and better way. So once the workflows have been designed in the canvas, we are also going to be displaying those workflows within the MCC itself. So we are going to bring in a new tab within the Explore option where you will be able to manage the workflows which are created with the new system. The lifecycle of the workflows control the usage. We have three different life cycles to start with. We have the draft, wherein any workflows which are in the design phase and if it is in the development activity, those are called as a draft. Now, once the workflow design is completed, the users can publish those workflows to be used in the event configuration later. Only the published workflows will be available for the configuration of the event, and the drafts will be only for the development cycle. Once the published workflows are available and used in the event, if it has to be deleted or stopped for the further consumption, it can be marked as obsolete, and obsolete is the status which is ready for the deletion. When you're looking at the published workflows, you also have an option to look at the events which are used, and that is called as the show dependency. So you select the particular workflow and click on the show dependency. It will bring in all the events which are configured and which are creating the tickets currently in the system. Now let's look at the workflow configuration for the events itself, how it is going to be available. Events are going to be enabled or disabled. A new status column is coming up, or the status feature is coming up in the April release. Until now, we did not have this capability. What this controls is if there is an event which is enabled that is going to create a ticket for that asset and the event type. And if you want to stop further creation of any tickets for any of the asset type and the event, you can mark it as disabled so that any tickets which are already active can go into the completion without creating the new tickets into the system. Also, we will be using the BPMN based workflows for any event configuration going forward. In the second step of the event configuration, when you look at the workflows, we are going to bring in only the BPMN based workflows which are published, as I mentioned. And in the configuration itself, the workflow canvas loads so that it gives a visual representation of the workflow and the step needs to be changed. Here, all the components are only for the viewing purpose. You cannot edit and replace or change the position from one swim lane to another swim lane. But the right-hand side properties, what you see, the name, definition, or the task priority, or the due dates, these can be completely customized and it can be reused. For example, if you are doing it for a glossary edit, or if you are doing it for a policy edit, a single workflow with a different context can be used. And also, each swim lane represents the stakeholdership role. So the stakeholdership role related to those assets or a generic one can be associated. This helps in the reusability of the workflow by maintaining one single copy and configuring it into multiple events based on the asset type. Once the tickets are created and once we have the tasks in the inbox, this is going to be displayed in the CDGC application content. We do have the human task today. That is for all the CAI-based workflows. We will have a control at the top for the user to switch between the new workflow inbox or going back to the old workflow inbox where the CI-based tasks are still available. I'll give you the context of it, how it is going to be used during the upgrade situation or the transition stage of the workflows. Then we have the two tabs, which are task assigned to me, which represents where I am the sole stakeholder for that particular task, which I need to perform. And there is an unassigned task, which represents all the tasks which are assigned to a user group or a stakeholdership role, which I am part of. So I can go there, I can claim that, or I can perform the tasks on those without any interventions. Below that, we have the stats about the number of tasks, based on the priority or the due date, and also the overdue, which are the tasks which are overdue in my inbox. On the bottom, we have two different panels, left-hand side panel and the right-hand side panel. The left-hand side panel displays all the tasks which are available, starting from the priority, the task name, type and due date information, and also on the created certain other components, which are all the columns which can be enabled as per the user preference. Also, users can switch between a list view and a card view. A card view also gives a better visibility on the number of tasks which they have. And also, we provide the filtering and sorting capability for the users to filter on the high priority or the overdue tasks based on the preferences. On the right-hand side panel, we have the task detail information along with the actions which can be performed. And we also have the link for the users to take into the ticket information itself. We also mention about the changes which are going in, if in the case of a request for a change of an asset. If it is a creation of an asset, we also display the asset information under the asset tab. We have the task details and the ticket details. Ticket details in itself contain a whole lot of workflow progress and where we stand in the workflow. Here you can see the workflow, which is loaded in the read-only mode, which gives a visual representation. And once it is enabled for a full screen mode, it has the details along with the legends. You can see here a green check mark on the tasks which have been completed that represents the task completion. There is a solid green line and also a dotted line. The solid green line represents the path the workflow has taken or the flow which has been completed. And the dotted line represents the flow which has not been, or the path which has not been traced by the workflow. We also have a representation for the tasks which are in progress and the tasks which are going to be overdue or which are already overdue as well. So this gives a clear picture for anybody viewing the ticket and to know at what stage the workflow is in. In the bottom, we also have the same textual description of the workflow progress, and it also represents the timeline when the user performed an action and what action was taken and what are the outcomes given from the user itself. Moving on, we'll discuss about the upgrade impact or how the transitioning to the new workflow system is to be done and what are the timelines we are looking at. In April, we are going to upgrade the new workflow system in the CDGC so that all new designing of the workflows will be BPMN based. We are going to provide out of the box 1-step, 2-step, or 3-step approval workflows, which will be part of the standard deployments. And the users can start using those workflows as is, or it can be customized and configured. The custom workflows which are used today from the CAI needs to be redesigned in the new workflow system or the new workflow canvas. To do this, we are giving you certain timelines, which is until the next upgrade cycle. Next major upgrade is planned somewhere in the July or in the August timeline. So you have 3 months of time effectively to make these changes. Now, what will happen to any new event configuration within the MCC? When you are configuring an event and associating with a workflow, you will be able to select only the BPMN-based workflows which are in the published state, and you will not be allowed to select any CAI processes which are there in the system today. Also, what will happen to the existing event configuration? If I have an event configured, which I have configured with a CAI process and it is creating the tickets, that will stay as is or continue as is until our next major release. So what needs to be done in that case? You need to redesign those workflows in the new system and you can edit the event, and during the edit, you will be allowed to select only the BPMN based workflows. It will not be listing any of the CI processes. So existing events edit will not allow for the CI process configuration. If there is an existing event configuration and the tickets are being created, that will continue till the next major release. And the users working on these tickets or the tasks will be seeing 2 task inbox in the CDGC. One is human task inbox for all the CI-based workflows. The other task inbox for the new workflow system. That is where you saw previously there is a switch which is going to be provided. And also we are going to redirect the users from the notification to appropriate inbox to perform their task. During this transition period, we will have both the inboxes will coexist and users can switch appropriately to complete those tasks. Whenever the users are working on the CI-based human tasks in the inbox, they'll be having a message to complete this before the next upgrade cycle. Also, once the next major release comes in and the upgrade happens, what will happen to the tasks or the tickets which are in the open state? We highly recommend them to be completed or cancelled for all the CI-based tickets. If not cancelled or completed, we are going to mark all those tickets as expired and the associated events will be deleted from the system. So this is where we are going to transition from the existing CI-based workflows into the new system by the end of the next major release. Let's look at a quick demo of the workflow configuration and the workflow design in the new system. Here you can see a designer mode. This is an application which is going to be similarly integrated into the MCC. Concentrate on the workflow design canvas and the configuration which is going to be available. Let me start with the naming of the workflow. So I want to name it a workflow which is going to be used for any changes in the asset. It can be a business asset like policy, process, or even a business term, or a system or a data set. I can use this workflow and configure it. As I said, there are 3 swim lanes, which is going to be loaded by default. I'm going to name each of the swim lanes for appropriate stakeholdership, stakeholdership levels. Here, I'm not associating with the role which is in the IDMC. Here, I'm just defining it. In the configuration, I'll be able to associate with the roles. We also support the requester persona or the person who is creating the ticket. And if there is any task which is placed in this particular swim lane, will directly go to that user. Now, we have the tray table, which has the components supported. We have 4 components currently: start, user task, decision gateway, and the end event. I can start designing by dragging and dropping the components into the swim lane itself. So this means stewards can start the workflow. And in the context of this start component, I can say what is the next task which has to be happening. I have only 2 options, which is the connection and the user task. I already have placed the user task. Let me name the task as analysis. I can provide the description here. I can set the task priority. I also provide the due in days. I'll give it as 5. And once I provide the due in days, the follow-up days get activated. It has to be less than the due in days so that after the task creation and the configured number of follow-up days, after 3 days, there will be an alert going into the stakeholders to take an action or perform the tasks to complete it. We also have the outcome defined where once the task is completed and what the action has to be performed by the user who is working on that task. So I give that name as completed as my task outcome. You can see still there is an alert message which is going to be provided saying that there is no outgoing connection for the user task here, and the connection or it should be end task. Let me use the drag and drop capability again. I'll be using the user task to the ownership role. I can do the connection linking from my previous task to this task. Now you can see all the validation messages on the task have been removed. Now the validation comes into the next task where we need to give the outcome and also we have to give the connection for the outgoing user task. Here I will give it as decision and I'll use a decision gateway next to that. This means that I need to define minimum 2 outcomes because the decision gateway will have either positive outcome or a negative outcome depending on the user's choice or the user's input. I will design it in such a way that if it is a failure, it goes into the requester for all the information. So let me not put in the due in days. I'll just give an outcome, two outcomes. One as approved and the second one as reject. These outcomes should be mapped into the appropriate outgoing connections. So you select the outgoing connection line. You can see it is currently marked in red so that the configuration is missing. So you choose the outcome as approved and go to the next connection assignment. You can see the color has been changed to gray. That means it has been successfully done. And in the other swim lane, you'll see the only option which is remaining, and that is the reject option. You can also provide a written option and give a linking from the component itself to the user task. So for that, you need to add an additional outcome and then you need to use that. So this helps the user to be in the context and the system suggests them what all the details needs to be provided then and there itself. So if it is approved, I'll say implement the changes and the task outcome will be done. I will, if it has been rejected, I'll say it has to be discard and the outcome would be as done as well. Now, still the workflow is not completed because there is no end step. Any workflow should have a start event, one single start event and multiple end events. So we can have two end events here. You can see here the end events have been configured. Once all the work steps have been configured, you can see there is no validation issues. The validation button has been disabled because it is all good. I can save this workflow. This will be in the draft mode. And then I can also publish this particular workflow to be consumed by the event. During the event configuration, we will load the same canvas in the configure mode, as I mentioned. Now, let me choose the workflow which I created previously. Here is the workflow which I've created. You can see the loading of the canvas is similar to the design mode, but the changes here is you don't have the component tray table in the left-hand side panel, which was existing earlier. That means to say you will not be able to edit any of the component within the canvas by placing it in a different swim lane or adding more steps into the workflow definition. But what can be configured or what information can be changed? Starting from the swim lane itself, you can associate the swim lane to the roles which are coming in. So the ownership role, I'm going to assign it to the administrator. I'm going to assign the stewardship role to the governance user. And finally, the requester or the person who is creating the ticket to the requester persona or the role. Once the swim lanes have been assigned, I'll go into the individual tasks and I can set the life cycle of an asset as well. What should be the life cycle of a policy or a business term during the execution of this workflow? So I will set it as in review. And if I want to change the outcome, I can say as instead of completed, I'll mark it as done to rename it. This is not going to change the definition of the workflow, but it will be only in the context of the event which I'm going to use. Also, I can go and set the due in days. If I say that the decision was not having any due in days, I can set that value to 2 days, and I also can change the task priority to medium, and any follow-up should be after 1 day after task creation. Here, again, I'll be setting it as in review. Based on the implementation, I can say if it is approved, it can be marked as publish. The asset will be published automatically. The lifecycle will be changed. It will be available for all the users of the CDGC to view them. We also have the discard, and again, if it has to be removed, then it goes back to the draft state, and how long it is required, that can also be changed in the configuration phase of the workflow. So this is all about the designer of the workflow or the designing the new workflow in the system, which is very user friendly, which is very effective and business user friendly to understand. We'll also quickly look at the sample inbox. This is with the mock data. It is not with the actual data, but to give you a context how it looks like. So we have an option, uh, as I mentioned, to switch between the workflows. That switch of the inbox itself will be coming in here. And you can see some of the dummy data which has been loaded here. And we have a controller to show the ORE or the stats or not to get a better real estate space. If I going to disable that, you will be able to see the list of tasks and the tasks to be performed. If not, you can enable it. You can use it for the filtering capability. As I mentioned, the priority, event type, and the due in days are going to be the stats which are coming up. It also says how many tasks are going to be due in the next 7 days and the tasks which are already overdue. Event type represents the events like asset creation or the changes to the asset, or it can be a data quality failure. It can keep on increasing. We have the priority, high, medium, and low. And left-hand side panel, as I mentioned, all the task information, all the tasks are listed based on the priority, name, event time. I can also switch to the card view, which loads in this manner. It has all the information, whatever was present in the list view, same is carried out for the grid view or the tile view as well. We have the search capability with the name and the description. We have the sorting capability based on the priority or the event type or the asset type. We have the filtering capabilities, which the users can use to filter on the task which they need to work on at any given point in time. And we also have the list of columns which can be enabled or disabled. By default, we have 5 columns. The description and created date is hidden. It can be enabled. If I want to know the created date, I can enable that and I can apply. It gives me the information of created date. If I go to the list view, the same created date is available. If I want to change the position of the column, I can click and I can drag it to the position which I intended, and I can click on the apply so that the column comes in the same order of the preferences. Now, on the right hand side panel, we have the task details and the ticket details and also additional tabs which can be coming in like the comments, the changes, the asset information, and we also have the actions which are going to be there. If there is 2 or 3 tasks to be performed, or the outcomes which have been configured, we will have 2 buttons as approve and reject. As it is a dummy data, we are just having the start as one of the action buttons. If I go into the unassigned task, additionally, what I will get is a claim option where I can claim and work on the task. If not, I can directly start the workflow or action the workflow items, that is the outcomes, so that implicitly it is going to be a claim. Today in the CAI workflows, there is a 2-step where I need to claim and then perform the actions. Here, with the new system, claim is an optional where you want to own the task for a certain period of time so that there is no duplication of the effort from other users. If you want to take an action immediately, you can directly click on the action on the task, which is going to be uh, performed by doing the claim in the backend. As I mentioned, if I have multiple actions, it comes in as a drop-down wherein it says approve, reject, or return, which is an immediate action. I don't have to claim it and I need to hold it on for some time in my task list. So that was all about the design of the workflows, configuring of the workflows, and how it is going to be worked in the task inbox as per the new workflow system. That was the quick demo of the application. So let's go into the Q&A session.
There are a few questions which may have come up during this session, so I'll quickly go through some of them and try to answer it. First, we have the capability whether the workflows implemented or activated can be assigned to a holder or to a specific business unit wherein they want to activate only for certain departments or which is going to come up with the early stage of onboarding of the assets. They have to restrict it. So this particular capability is going to be part of the product roadmap when we bring in the rule-based events. So if we are saying a business term with specific component, like in the critical data element, for example, if it is critical data element, it goes into 2 or 3 step of approvals. Or if it is not a critical data element, it will be a 1-step approval. Similarly, if it is coming from a different business area or the business unit, it can be used along with the rule-based approach coming up in the later in the year. It is in the part of the roadmap of the product. There are other queries which I'll quickly go through. Can we have more than 3 roles, or the swim lanes, is it restricted to 3? No, it is not restricted to 3. It is. It can be configured based on your use case. It is number of stakeholdership role which you want to use it. So it can be added or it can be decreased as well as you configure. Then we have another question. Does it support parallel approvals sent to multiple roles at once and all stakeholders should approve it or not? Again, support for the parallel gateways is in the product roadmap in the future release. Along with that, we are also looking at the voting capability for this. Say, if you are looking at all the stakeholders to participate and provide their approval. For example, if you have a governance administrator of 5 users as a governance administrator, whether all 5 users need to participate, or even if we get 3 approvals to proceed on the workflow. So these are the capabilities which are going to be added to the product in the future. Then we have with the new workflows be able to be version controlled. What we have it in CI. No, we don't have the versioning control. But we will be looking at the SDLC capabilities later in the future. Currently, the CDGC itself is not supporting the SDLC or the versioning part. You have any one version of the workflow published. If you want to make any change, you have to make it as a draft and make a copy of it. Then can we expect the workflow to work based on policies on specific subset of data assets? Just now I answered that we are coming up with the rule-based event configuration, which will help in to say at what particular point in time, if it is a policy related, if the asset is related to a policy, which is for GDPR, that goes through the approval process. Rest of them will not do. Rule-based approach is what we are looking at these things. There is one more query which has come in. Are the users automatically going to get the workflow access in MCC part of the feature release, or do we need to make changes to the role privileges? So by default, we are going to provide some of the out of the box roles and permissions. It is all permission driven. So currently, if the user is having system defined roles like governance administrator, those are the users who are going to use that. If you are using a custom role, the permission needs to be enabled. And if the question is basically for the policy based or the metadata access control, which is coming, so needs to be added into that. Policy needs to be changed. This is all applicable at the MCC level, so I don't think about the metadata access control, but these permissions for out-of-the-box roles is going to be there. There is one more query. Will you need to copy and configure the out-of-the-box workflow, or will they be available to use? So there is no need of copying and configuring. This 3 out-of-the-box workflows will be available as soon as the upgrade happens. The April release comes out, and it will be in the published state, so that any event configuration can start using these workflow 1-step, 2-step, and 3-step workflows. And you can configure the specific stakeholdership role, and you can modify the due dates and other rest of the information as per your asset configuration. For IACS cloud data integration, is there a Windows UI or app? I'm not sure what is the Windows UI or the app, because we do have support from the web-based, and we don't have anything as a OS-specific information today. We do have further queries. Technical assets with workflows. Yes, that is going to be capable from the future release. Currently, it is for the business assets. We are going to extend it for catalog use cases of classification, IGA, glossary recommendations, or the rule recommendations, all those things in the future. We also have, can we export the history of tasks, what was completed on time, what is overdue, etc. So we are not going to give any capability from the application at least, but there will be an APIs which is going to be exposed in later future releases, where using the APIs, the data can be taken out from the system to do the reporting and the statistics analysis. There is another query wherein it says, can we use the current out-of-the-box workflows for custom? As I mentioned, yes, definitely. Events, and it is completely customizable. If not, you can make it and you can start using it. And query wherein it says, will it work in the same way like stakeholder approves, it will be approved and does not require approval from other stakeholders? For April, yes, this is how it will work. But later on, once we bring in the parallel gateways and also the voting task, which is a BPMN standard, it will be all the stakeholders or the approvers need to provide their decisions. Will this also support CDMP checkout workflows, that is customization of custom checkout process? Once in April, it is the CDGC which is going to consume this new workflow engine. Once the CDMP utilizes this new workflow engine, all the order management also will be coming up through the new workflow systems of the engine. Will it be able to send a reminder to the user for past due workflow approvals? We do have a configuration to follow up. So we have the due date and also the follow-up days. We do send out the reminders after the follow-up date, and also post the due date of the task. We send out the notification email as well as the in-app notification. In current design, assets created or updated via bulk upload are not supported for workflows. Is this going to be supported? Yes, that is going to be supported in the future release, wherein the bulk import actions of create or update also will trigger the workflows for approval. And also it is configured. We are going to make it more convenient, whether the ticket can contain all the objects or individual tickets for each object. This is the customization of the configuration we are going to provide there. Can this be utilized for taking a description on business term and pass the description to any associated Power BI columns? Not in April, definitely, wherein we are not exposing or we are not giving that information to the external source. Once we have the capability using the service task to connect this. Will the current CI workflow process be deprecated starting April? We are going to have this till the next major release, as we mentioned. We'll have the coexisting both. CI will still continue as it is, but CDGC will not use the CI process. CI is meant for all the technical capabilities of the integration. That will still continue. It will be part of the IDMC. And only for the human task related activities on CDGC, we are relying on the new workflow. We are just starting on the implementation of workflows in my company. Do you recommend to wait for the new release features to avoid redesign and rework? Definitely yes. Current April release, which is going to be coming up in the next 1.5 months, that will give you more room for the improvements, and also it overcomes any of the shortcomings which we have faced till now with the CI-based workflows. This will also avoid you for the rework and the redesign. The materials for the topic will be available after this session for the download. So you can take the slides and you can pick it up. Then we have, what about the asset group based? That is, only members of certain asset groups can update or change those assets. So this is all the permission based driven. The workflow, the metadata access control user group, whatever has been provided, only they will be able to update the assets. But during the workflow participation, if they are part of the stakeholdership and if they are made as a person to work on the workflows, they should also have the permission to update that. It is vice versa. I think we have most of the queries answered. There is some more. I'll just quickly go through that. Is there auto trigger happening for CRS? For April, it is all the manual ticketing system. Later in the future releases, we are going to support the bulk use case and also the system event triggered, system event based ticketing system. Can we import BPMN normalized workflows designed in other systems? No, BPMN I know it is a BPMN standard, which is a global one, but we will be restricting it to the workflows which are designed within the IDMC for security compliance perspective, and that will be available in the future releases. Is there such capability to create our own flows as we do in Axon? Yes, definitely. The workflow canvas itself is open for your designing your complex workflows. How to schedule workflows to run at a specified time. So that is going to be part of the future release as part of the reattestation, where you can set the schedule information. Either it can be quarterly or half yearly or yearly based on the assets and the asset type, along with the rules for the event. Will you have documentation on what user role group permissions are needed for all steps in designing, configuring, and using? Yes, definitely. This will be part of the product documentation in the April release. You'll be having those details. Is the dashboard for workflows available after the update, or is an additional configuration? I just wanted to know what dashboard it is. By default, in the task inbox, we have the statistics, and we do not have any other dashboards as part of the workflow. But information within the workflow can be used externally when we have the APIs coming up. Is there a way to export reporting regarding the tasks and completion dates and OD? I just answered that. We are planning to provide it as an API. So there is another query coming in from wherein we are managing multiple countries in our data governance platform. Each of them are having different requirements for business terms workflow. Is this supported with the new workflow feature? The plan is to support with the, as I mentioned, the rule-based approach, wherein you can say the business terms associated to a specific country should go in, get assigned to a specific analyst or the stakeholders for the approval. So it is all driven from the rule-based approach coming up in the future. That is all in the. What about asset group based? Only members of certain, again, these are all the rule based approaches which we are looking at, where specific user can approve or specific asset with conditions can be going into the approval system for the ticketing system, ticket creation. As we previously had an issue with the workflows when it happened that the stakeholder was away and they do not able to approve or reject the ticket. Okay, this is mainly about the reassignment and the assignment. All the task management will be part of the future release, wherein we give the tasks which have been assigned to a user who has left the company or the user has gone on a vacation, how it can be reassigned, how it can be revoked. So these are the capabilities of the task management coming up in the future. There is one more question coming in where it says, can we enforce user to leave text comment for approval? Yes, definitely. Today we have it at the ticket level, but in the next release, we are going to provide the commenting capability wherein each decision what they take, for example, if they want to reject a particular decision or the approval process, the comments can be mandatory or optional during the design stage. If it is mandatory, the user has to provide his comment before rejecting an option. Here's an example. Any outcome will have the commenting capability as mandatory or optional. Is there a specific timeline for those future release items? Yeah, we do. We can walk you through on the roadmap sessions. Please do reach out to your respective CSMs and we can walk you through there. Will the auto approval or auto rejection configurable after due date? Not looked at it right now. What we are doing as part of the post due date, we will give the task as overdue, and we do have the expiry date after 3 months. The task will be as the expired. The user has to cancel the tickets and recreate the tickets in that situation. Because auto approval or auto rejection, doing it from the system might not be the right way to process that. The outcome can be different. The system will not do that auto accept or auto reject. Okay. Any other queries? Any other questions coming in? Thank you.